But I just wanted to talk to you briefly about the actual guidance itself, which some of you may have had the chance to look at online. And then we're going to take a short period of questions where you'll have the chance to ask some of the speakers from this morning, including myself, but I'm probably the least interesting of them all, any questions you have before we break for lunch. Okay, so some of you will know about what we had planned to do from the regional events, but just to give you a run through about the work that we were commissioned to do on behalf of COSLA. We ran a series of 4 regional events across Scotland, which was an opportunity to speak and bring together people who are involved in the development or the delivery of ESOL for resettled refugees. And we got quite a wide range of different people coming to those events in different areas, mostly people who are ESOL practitioners, but people in a range of other roles as well. And that was an opportunity for people to talk and to share learning and to share their experiences. And the sort of other side of that was we were using it as an opportunity to hear both about the challenges that you were facing in supporting resettled refugees with ESOL, and starting to identify some good practice or interesting practice, things that people were doing to overcome some of the barriers and to adapt the way they were working to support learners as effectively as they could. Following those events, we had a little bit of time set aside to do some follow-up fieldwork. So we spoke with 11 practitioners or experts, people who we wanted to help us fill in some of the gaps in the guidance and to identify some local lessons, kind of like mini case studies for the guidance. And we also spoke with 20 learners over a series of focus groups, which some of you may have been involved in helping us set up. And all of this has come together in the development of the new written guide, which you may have had the chance to look at in advance of today. There are copies in the foyer if you want to have a look, and I'll just tell you a little bit about where you can access that following today as well if you've got any sort of final comments on it. And the guide is very much good practice for those involved in planning or delivering ESOL for resettled refugees. And then all of the work is finishing off, more or less, with today, so this national learning event. Just to tell you very briefly about the guide and the approach that we took to developing that. The guide is very much based on the experiences of the people we engaged in recent months. So it's not my advice about what you should do, it's me bringing together and analysing what you and others told us. It explores some of the challenges that people are facing, and we heard at the regional events that actually for many people it was good to just hear that everyone's facing similar challenges, and it shares learning, so it shares advice people gave us about dealing with certain situations and issues, and we tried to focus in on things that you told us were an issue at regional events. And it's also designed to be quite accessible, so in the longer term it's hoped that the guide will go online, perhaps in more interactive format. For now it's in a PDF, but we've structured it in a way that we hope you can easily dip in and out of it, so read sections when you wish, or just go and dip into it to look for some resources around something that you're doing the following day or whatever it might be. In terms of its style, we've included some quite simple, plain English, a narrative really around the key themes and advice that people talked about. It includes a number of local examples or case studies from some of the people we spoke with. It also includes a list of the materials and tools. When we were at the regional events, we asked people to identify apps, online resources, written resources that they used quite a lot in their learning and teaching practice, and people did that for us, and actually people were saying actually it was great just to get some new ideas about what to use. So we've included a fairly long list of all of those at the back with hyperlinks so you can go and visit some of those resources. Throughout the guidance there are sources of further reading, which again you can just visit through the hyperlinks, whether it's around some of the context you might want to learn about or some of the resources and research that we talk about. And there are also some reflective prompt questions throughout the guidance, so questions for you to use maybe in thinking about your own practice, or maybe where you're bringing together a group of people to think about what you do with your practice or your service in the future. not going to take very long to talk to you about this at all. There's a few copies of the guidance in the foyer, as I mentioned, and an area that you can write some comments down on it if that's what you would like to do. There's a very brief introduction, so the first section is just really about explaining how the guide was developed and how you can use it. We've got a relatively long context section. People said often that they wanted to understand better the kind of policy and background, kind of policy and strategy background, I suppose, to the programme and how that influences ESOL provision. So we've included information in there about that and links to relevant documents and so on. There's a brief section on challenges and opportunities. We've included the report from the regional events at the back of the guidance, but we provide an overview of the key challenges that people talked about and the opportunities they said there were there to improve ESOL provision. And then there's a couple of the kind of chunky section of the guidance. So section 4 is all aimed at people involved in strategic planning and resourcing. And of course, people at a practitioner level will find some of that interesting and useful as well. But this section focuses on your local context, partnership working, identifying needs and opportunities, and choosing the right model for your area, because we're conscious that a lot has evolved in different areas in different ways. So we've got some information there about what people said they would like to have been thinking about at the start of the process that they've sort of learned by this stage. And then the second big section of the guidance is around delivering ESOL. So that deals with a few sort of planning issues around thinking about barriers to learning, many of which are the things actually that Jonathan and Duncan talked about in their presentation, about planning and improving your ESOL provision. Some advice about what people have told us works well, articulating some of that. And then it goes on to give a little bit of advice around some quite specific issues that people felt they wanted a little bit more help and a little more direction around. So managing mixed ability groups, people had really good advice around that. Managing gender issues, having difficult conversations, which is our nod to the fact that people coming as resettled refugees will have had very varied experiences, many of which might be quite traumatic. And practitioners wanted some help and some support to think about how they deal with that, not in the sense that they should be trying to sort that out or fix it, but just how within the ESOL setting where these sorts of issues arise and what to kind of do about it. So we've got a little bit in there on that. And then managing and supporting volunteers. So as Alison has said, this is like quite a big theme around the resettlement programme, and people had good experiences and lots of learning points around how they'd worked with volunteers effectively. And then the final section is the materials and the tools as a list, basically, that I mentioned. You should have had a link in advance of today to Research Scotland's website, where we are holding the final draft of the guidance. We're looking to get this finished off quite quickly, but if you want to speak to any of us today about it or write any comments about what you've read or seen, you can do that on the flip chart board out there today over coffee over lunch. Or you can get in contact with us if you wish. And we're trying to get all of the final comments back by the 10th of November so that we can get this finished off and online in a PDF form for you as quickly as we can. And I think the idea is from colleagues in COSLA that this will be refreshed and revisited at various points in the future. That was everything I had to say to you about that, a bit of a whistle-stop tour.